So I'll start the recording.
Okay, now I have to watch what I'm saying. So
yeah, always. So very welcome to this first ever knowledge exchange by LPPDE with Norbert Majerus, and it's like a taste of what will be happening next week as well when we have our annual US conference, where Norbert will have a couple of sessions, including a very interesting workshop on creativity. So I think we'll take away that and see each other's more. And so Norbert, the idea was to talk about your second book, this one,
yeah,
Winning Innovation.
correct.
And all the knowledge you put into that, because you surprised us some 5 years ago with a book just as thick as this with your knowledge, but now you have surpassed and had even more, 400 pages more of knowledge to share.
Yeah, correct.
And this is a business novel, Norbert. Why? How come a business novel?
Yeah, that is a very important point. First of all, I have always enjoyed business novels. I'm a big fan of the Goal, and Goldtratt wrote it as a business novel. Actually, Cox wrote it for him, and so I read all. Cox wrote several other business novels since, and I read them with great interest, learning, and also, as you can see, Michael Ballet wrote the foreword and he talked a lot to him about it. The main reason why I wrote it as a business novel is there were 2 or 3 reasons. First of all, I had a lot of stories that I couldn't put in my first book. I would have had to, the people would have recognized the situation and so on. So I wanted to talk about some of those things. And so I had to invent the circumstances and everything that all around, what went all around. And so that's one reason, but that was not the main reason. The main reason was actually that I struggled putting the people part is what I really had to focus on in this book, because I learned over many years that the principles is easy compared to the people transformation. And so I had a really hard time to figure out how to. You cannot put that really in a bullet form, and the only way I found to describe accurately the people part, the feelings and the struggles and the emotions and everything, I finally thought maybe the best place to put that, the best way to talk about that and to get that clearly communicated is with a business novel. And as far as I'm concerned, that did work relatively well. Of course, the verdict is still out how people like the book, but I was at least able to communicate it, and I think that was the main reason, and that's why I liked the fact at the end that it did come together, and I did get the stories together, and I think it kind of I still got it to flow, got the stories in there, got the principles in there, got the people part in there. Because one important thing that I learned over many years of doing this is that you have to do the people part at the same time you implement process changes. Because if you don't, you have missed your best opportunity to do that. Of course, I didn't do it that way. I learned that lesson, and about halfway through a major transformation that I was leading at the Goody Innovation Centers, I realized, hey, the people part is missing. And then I started to learn how to do that and talk to people and so on, and figured it out. And so I'm trying in my new book to show the right way of doing things. You do the people part and the process part at the same time. And I also show the roadmap in the story how it should be done correctly. So, okay, long answer, Peter. Sorry. Okay, that's why it is a business novel.
That's why you wrote the book. So
I'm sorry. That's why
you wrote the book.
I wrote it as a business novel. The main reason I wrote the book, Peter, is because there was my other book. I wrote it in 2014, and I learned so much since, and there was so much that I wasn't able to put in my first book. That's the main reason I wrote a second one, because I wanted to describe the process from the beginning to the end. And at Goodyear, we had done the main part, which is kind of the technology development part and the product development part. But I never was able to describe the creative part and like the startup, the agile, and all those kind of things. I wasn't able to put in the first book. So I wanted to show the process from the beginning, from somebody having a new idea, all the way into making money out of that product that resulted from it. So that's the main reason I wrote the second book. And as I said, I wrote it as a business novel. I think I answered that question too now. So
yeah, you're right about transformation. Do you feel you should do a transformation, or should you do improvements in small steps instead?
Yeah, that is a very interesting part. The improvement in small steps, of course, you can do them. And but I believe that is a great system when you have already something going. I believe that the first part of the transformation is major change, whether we like it or not. Okay? People who embark on this journey, on this lean journey, that is a major disruption. That is a really major change. And people who have gone through it will confirm that, and I guess you have the same experience. And so that is, as far as I'm concerned, what the Japanese word for it is kayaku. That's a major change. And you have to, that is hard to do in small steps. But then once you are done with that, I mean, you continue in the small steps. But there may be another thing coming where you need to do the more radical transformation. And the innovators know this very well, Peter, because innovation is done like that. I mean, you continue, you improve your product in small steps and so on. And then from time to time, you have to throw in the more radical change, the more disruptive change. And that's how innovation is done. And by the way, that is a major struggle to a lot of companies, as you may know. They are on that small step journey and will still have to see how the electrical car will work out. The guys from Tesla, they went for the disruption. And they really put the pieces in that were needed to do that disruption. And more traditional car companies, we still have to see how when they come on board with that technology. And you can go and look at all kinds of different innovations that have happened. Most successful innovation has happened as a disruption. And just look at this thing. That didn't come from a marketing survey. That came from somebody saying, "Hey, this technology is possible, and I'm going to disrupt the industry." And it went to the point where everybody out there carries this piece with him right now. I still remember the time in the 90s when the chairman of the biggest battery producer in the world said, "Nobody will ever carry a phone with him all day long." So there you go. And we have to look at lean the same way. It is a disruption. It is an innovation to a lot of people.
And what you spoke about the people side, and what do you do with people who do not want to be in that transformation?
It's a very good question, because people don't like anything new like that. People don't like that disruption. So how do you do that? Well, again, the new book gave me an opportunity to describe just that process. You have to engage the people, and you have to engage them from the first step on. Just like with innovation, I worked in a skunk works organization, and we had hundreds of ideas. We had prototypes, minimum viable prototypes. We had everything, but we couldn't convince anybody that the ideas were good. I learned later, if you want to have successful innovation, you don't go do it in isolation. You do it with the other people in the organization. And the transformation goes the same way. You have to engage the people who are there who do the work. You cannot just say, hey, tomorrow we need new people here because we make a transformation. It doesn't work. You need to engage the people that work there. And they are the ones who help you drive that whole thing. And they are the ones who sustain it when the leader of the transformation walks away one day or retires like me. That is a very key point. They have to have skin. For example, I had manufacturing had a skin in the game of every new product from the day we talked about it the first time. And so did sales, and so did marketing, finance even were involved at that time. And that made a major difference. I don't think it works. That's the best way to do it from what I learned. It may be hard to engage leadership, and a lot of companies are struggling with that. I struggled with it too, like everybody else. And there is a way to engage the leaders. And in fact, Peter, I learned that from you guys when I learned from you that you engage the leaders in teaching Lean 101, in teaching the boot camp, the basics of the Lean principles. And it worked unbelievably well when we did that at Goodyear, and that's one step. The other pieces of engagement for me is respect for people, and don't tell people what to do. Ask people, how should we do this? And that's how you get them engaged. If you just tell them, hey, tomorrow we're going to do Lean, this is what I want you to do. We all know that doesn't work so well. But to go out and ask the people, hey, look, there is some value to this Lean thinking. It would really help us in this company, and you have to show them facts and everything, educate them and so on. And then you say, okay, what do you think? How can we do that here? And to me, that was one of the key steps to get the people engaged. It didn't go like I wanted it, Peter, but it went. And it had results, and it's still running. So
it's quite interesting what you say, because I had lunch with some of our directors today, and one of them said, of course I could invite you to speak to my people, but it's not the same as if I did it. So I have to do the job. So it's very clear about ownership.
There we go. That the people have to own the process. But let's talk a little bit about innovation. Now we talked about Lean. Let's talk a little bit about innovation now.
I have a question first.
Yeah, go ahead.
From Fredrik Didriksson, which is connected to the first topic. It says that in your book, a consultant is driving the transformation. What is pros and cons with internal or external?
That is correct. The consultant isn't a real consultant in my book. The consultant is the owner of this small company that I write the story around, is an expert on Lean innovation. That expert buys companies who are not doing good with innovation. and he implements what I call innovation excellence or lean innovation. And you have to give that company you need to teach them, and you need to guide them, and you need to give them a roadmap, and you have to make sure they get started on that roadmap. That is done in that book by a consultant. Not a real consultant. This lady, Sophia, is on loan in that company to get them started. But she does not go in there and say, okay, this is what I like you to do. She's not even interested. The owner says, okay, let's go. I walk you through the company and I show you what we're doing. She said, no, wait. There's other things that we need to do first. So she's not even interested in learning what they do at that company. She's just interested in engaging the people who work in that company, from the floor level all the way to the leadership, to engage them into this transformation and to put them on the right track, to get them started, to educate them, and then she's not needed anymore. And she does it in a very short period of time. And I think that is also something people think it takes forever to do a transformation, like a lean or a transformation, but it's really not. If you do it right, it really doesn't take all that much time. So she does it in a very short time. Yes, and by the way, in my case, we did not use a consultant. I educated myself and talked to people like Peter, talked to other people in the industry who helped me, and that didn't fit so well into the story. So I still believe that an expert, whether it's an internal or external, helps a lot with this whole thing. And but if the external expert comes in, it can't be coming in to tell people what to do. It has to be coming in and engaging the people, educating them, engaging them, and developing an internal leader as quickly as possible.
Good, thank you. I think we're going into the area of innovation.
There we go. Thank you.
And I've read about the lean killing innovation. What's your take on that?
Yeah. I was in one of the most innovative places that I've ever seen. It was at Google. Okay, it was in California. We were at Google, and Google wasn't really involved in the little conference that we had. They just let us. There was one participant, and he took us to Google. And I was talking about lean. Okay, this was a conference about innovation, basically, not so much about lean innovation, about innovation in general. And they were really focusing on concurrent development, where you develop everything concurrently, which is really very engaging, by the way. And there was a gentleman there. He was the chief technology person at one of the biggest hand tool makers. They were making hand tools like drilling machines and so on. But they did a lot of other, even household goods and all kind of other machines and tools like that. And he spoke up before I could say a word in my presentation. He says, "Lean is all bullshit," he said. I'm sorry for the words, because that's what they use. And I said, "Why?" He said, "It totally kills information. Please, guys, don't listen to this guy. He will kill your innovation." And then it went right into the 3M company. And there were people from 3M sitting around the table. And they all said, "Yeah, we had this happen to us." They implemented lean at 3M, and innovation died. And they had to fire the chairman. They said, and when we got a new chairman, he said, "Throw all that stuff away and get back to how you used to do innovation." And then I questioned the 3M people, and it turned out it wasn't really lean. it was an edict from a Six Sigma educated GE chairman who said every project must have an ROI, return of investment, of 3 years. And that wasn't possible in their system. So that's why the innovation died. And I met many, many people from 3M, great people, including the inventor of the sticky notes, Art Fry, and so on, and had great conversations with a lot of people. They figured it out, and they have a very good system, and they have a very effective system. And Lean could improve it, yeah, but they are still afraid innovation will die. And I was able to convince this little conference that innovation didn't die at Goodyear, at least, and that if you do it right, innovation will not die. And in fact, in my first book, I quote the gentleman who organized this company, because he wrote an article afterwards. He said, yes, Lean is absolutely, we all said Lean will kill innovation. But he said, but I was recently at Goodyear, he said, and I saw an example how they were able to maintain. So at least he gave me credit for the work. At Goodyear, Lean did not kill innovation, and anywhere I go, it does not. And in fact, what kills innovation, the number one thing is fear. Leaders are afraid of taking a risk. There are, I got a comment here from Kimberly Johnson. She used to work at 3M, so there we go. And we had a lot of conversations about that. And she actually introduced me to Art Fry and brought Art Fry to my Lean workshops. So it's fear, and that's the number one. It's not the only one, but that's really the number one aspect. Leaders are afraid. They have a lot to lose and nothing to gain. Okay. If I support this new idea, there is a very small chance that it's successful, and that's just the way it is. That's the way it has to be. That's the way innovation works. If I support this thing and it doesn't work, I have a lot to lose and have very little to gain. And that fear is what drives the decisions in most companies. Now, Lean gives those people a tool, and it's called the standardization. It gives them a tool to control what people do. And that they feel very safe. They have that. So if you lock everything in with standards in your company, you not only narrowing down the field in which the people can work, in which the people can create new things, but you also give the people who want to control everything an additional tool to help them. And that is something you have to overcome. And even Deming says the first principle of Deming, what was it, 50 years ago, drive out fear. And that's what Toyota and everything is based upon. And that's an area where you really have to work in a company and to make sure they are comfortable with innovation. And I found that agile thinking, the whole startup thinking, where you do not ask for a commitment of $10 million for a project, where you ask for a couple $100 to prove one more point. Like the way I like to do innovation, I like to ask, what's the most critical question here? What's the most critical question that can make or break this idea or this project? And then I ask for $100 and I answer that question. And then I ask for another $100 and I answer the next question. And when I'm done, after I spend maybe a couple $1,000 in a very agile sprint everything methodology, now I have enough data to go to this leader that is afraid of taking a risk. And I say, look, I have reduced my risk very significantly here with very little means, with very few means. What do you think now? And if I don't get a yes in that meeting, I ask that leader, what is your next critical question? what do you want me to answer here next? And now I engage that person. And of course, I do what that person asks me. I do it in an agile, lean startup methodology and so on. And I come back a month later and I said, okay, I have an answer to your question. And this way I knock away that fear until I get the approval. And I tell you, I'm not going in there and I say, I want $50 million to build a new plant for a new product, because that's their thinking. I go in there and I say, I just spent $10,000 to reduce the risk of this project, where I think it's prudent now to make the next bigger investment. And to me, that was a key thing that I realized number one, probably one of the most important things to get innovation going. Peter, I told you how you use lean tools to reduce the risk there, but I also bank on other good stuff that lean brings to the table, like the engagement, like respect for people, like humble leadership, and so on. All those things help tremendously. And so I think the two go together very well. If you understand innovation, it is very easy to create synergy between innovation and lean thinking. Unfortunately, my colleague there who said lean kills everything has retired now. I would love to go and talk to him again. Maybe Kimberly can help me get back in. She knows who I'm talking about. Maybe she can help me get in touch with him. And then I sent him my newest book and see what he said.
It's nice when you speak about fear. I'm thinking about one story you told, the top management being in the room saying, "Who the hell did this? Who changed this tire?" But you stayed on.
Hey, but then I have to say one good thing about Goodyear here. In the same week, I got an idea approved, and I did it. This was 40 years ago, and I used all these tools that now we teach people and call it lean startup innovation. I made minimum viable products and you name it. But also, so you can see the contrast there. There were people in Goodyear who said, in order to be innovative, but those were different people, and they all worked in the same company and in the same culture. And I believe that is typical, that culture. That is not unusual, that is typical. But I can tell you absolutely for sure, when we implemented lean innovation at Goodyear, we got the efficiency and the speed and the predictability from lean, but we also tripled the amount of new projects and new products.
Mm-hmm. That's good, because it seems like the question "who did this" in a negative way is something that should be forbidden in the lean innovation world.
That should be, Peter, but you do have those people, and I think lean has taught me how to deal with them. At that time, I was hiding and hoping that this would get away and go away, and it fortunately did. But now, with what I know about lean, I would try to engage that person. I would ask him, "What is your main concern? Why are you so afraid of this thing?" And then I would say, "What can I do to help you eliminate your concern?" And if I'm successful doing that, I walk out of that office, and he told this gentleman, in this case, it was a gentleman, he would have told me what his main concern is. And then I spent the next month eliminating his main concern. And I will use lean startup thinking and agile and all that good stuff in order to do that. And then I come back and say, "Hey, this one we can put to bed. What's your next biggest concern?" And then we work on that one. Actually, I think I had already eliminated his main concern because the tire was already on a plane and flying, and I had data. So,
and it worked. That's good. I'm thinking about metrics, because you always, when you do a big change, you want to see how much better do we get, and so on.
yes.
Do you have any good stories about metrics?
Yes, in fact, there are oodles of metrics to measure innovation. Okay, and I learned one thing, and very, very clearly. There's only one metric, and I take this comes straight from 3M, one of the most innovative companies in the world. And at Goodyear, we use exactly the same metric, independently. I don't think that that Goodyear had learned it from 3M. But for me, the number one metric to measure innovation in a company is how much revenue did we have from product that is less than 3 years old. And at Goodyear, the target was 30%. And at 3M, it's even higher, probably 40. The last time I talked to somebody, there was about 40%. So if that creates an innovative pull and not an innovative push. I always did innovation by pushing ideas up the ladder, okay? But if I have this metric, marketing will come to me and say, what do you have cooking? What's going on? When do we have the next big thing? And then it's very easy to engage them. Now I can talk to them and say, hey, here is the portfolio that we are working on. And I show them 15, 20 things that could be done. And then I say, okay, what do you like the best? And then we have a dialogue going. And now I end up with, not saying we want this and this, I end up with, hey, these 3 or 4 things we would be interested. And then I say, okay, you know what? Now I have them engaged in this whole thing. And now we can start talking about this. Now I can put a team together. I can put a team together with the innovator, with the marketing people, and maybe I can even get the manufacturing people engaged, maybe the finance people. And now we work together. Now we collaborate on this thing. Now I created pull in my innovation. And I think that is the most powerful thing to do innovation, if you can do that. And now all metrics will flow from there. Now I can come up with metrics for sales. I can come up with metrics for R&D, for the whole organization. But they all come back down from that number one metric that the company is pursuing, which is revenue from new products. And for example, you could have metrics for R&D saying, okay, how many about how quickly things are being picked up, how many I would always have a metric about the R&D portfolio that the R&D organization has created, and so on and so on. But all those metrics have a direct side to the revenue from the new products. So that's my very short answer. Details, yes. But as I said, if I want to come up with how you deploy that all the way down, now we are talking about different companies, now we're talking about different products. But I'm sure that if you keep that number one metric in mind, companies will not have a hard time to find the metrics for all the individual steps of the innovation process.
How do you feel about soft metrics for the human side? People feeling or lack of fear?
Yeah, that is very important, but it's very difficult to come up with them. And I talk about it a lot in my book, Winning Innovation. The company that I described, they actually came up with a lot of these metrics. And people, just to give you one idea here. There's a company, they were on our, we had this lean forum or in northern Ohio and northeast Ohio, and they were part of our group there. It was like a free thing where we just got together and talked and shared. And they had, this was a company actually, they did dialysis for totally sick people all the time that are really hard on the nurses. And these nurses, the turnover was ridiculous. I mean, they just couldn't keep anybody in the company. And they got a new chairman who had lived through an innovation initiative, he called it. And it was really only an idea generation and so on, like a box where you can throw ideas in and so on. But he was able to engage the whole company in this initiative. And now all of a sudden the nurses, when they saw something that they didn't like or that was going wrong, they were empowered to change it. And they shared their results, and the engagement went up, and guess what? The turnover went down just as quickly as the engagement went up. And so a lot of companies try to measure that engagement. And I think it's a good idea, but I don't think you can measure it only by that survey that you do where you bring an outside company and do the engagement survey, which I'm sure we all do. But to me, that's only one data point. The best data point is you come up with your own system. And believe it or not, one of the best metrics that our chief technical officer had, he went out on Gemba walks and he talked to the people and he saw how things changed. And it's hard to measure that, but he saw it himself and he supported it. And he talked to his everybody on his staff about this, and they started to do the same thing. Those soft things are hard to measure, Peter, as you well know, but they are easy to observe. Hard data are maybe a little bit hard to get, but observation is always there, and you observe behaviors, and if you see the wrong behaviors, you can do coaching, and a lot of companies have hired coaches that do coach people to move them towards more appropriate behaviors. And but again, it all has to line up with what you want to do as a company. If you don't want to have innovation, that's very easy to do. If you don't want any innovation, it's very easy to do, but you will see your revenues come down at one time, like it happened to most companies who took that approach. But if you do want the innovation, you allow it, you support it, you make it happen, and you drive the right behaviors accordingly. Do behaviors need to be measured with like you measure other things in your initiative with just counting things? I don't believe that you have to show people how badly they behaved in order to make a change. You can do it much softer, Peter, as you well know. I think that works quite well in a lean environment that you want to make more innovative.
Yeah, good. What about the challenges of different cultures? Because Goodyear have at least in Luxembourg and Ohio plants. So how do you look at that? People are different.
We also had a plant in Germany and an innovation center in Germany, by the way. I do not think that makes a huge big difference. I think it's all a matter of that's where actually leadership can help a lot, believe it or not. The Goodyear did one great thing in the innovation center. It was one center. in 3 different locations. Everything was global. The director of engineering was in Akron. The director for materials development was in Luxembourg, and the director for test development was in Germany. Okay, and they had global staff. So there is a director in Germany who has people reporting to him or her that work in Ohio. So why not? And that made it one culture, one innovative culture for the whole company around the world. And by the way, Goodyear had a center in innovation center, not really a small, very small one in China and one in Brazil and so on and so on. And they were all part of that common culture. And I think that's how I know a company, they through acquisition, they ended up with 14 innovation centers around the world, and everyone is independent. Technical chair, or whatever you call him, chief technical officer, whatever, does nothing but resolve conflict. I don't know exactly what he's doing, but my opinion is all that he does is he resolves conflicts between all those organizations. That didn't even happen. That never happened. The organization that I grew up with, it was global. Okay, I worked for people who lived, who resided across the ocean and so on. We pick up the phone and we see each other a few times a year, and so on and so on. So. And especially today, with what we are doing today with Zoom and everything, that global organizations and global cultures are much, much, much easier.
Do you feel one needs to have a burning platform to get going, to make change happen?
I don't think so. A lot of people say you must have it, and we had it at Goodyear, and when we didn't have it, we created it. Okay, but I don't think you absolutely have to have that. But you have to have the understanding that the change is good, that change will help us, that change will make us better. That understanding has to be there, and if that understanding is there, I'm not so sure you need that burning platform.
Interesting. I see, looking in your book under the endorsements, you have an endorsement from the Akron Chelsea Hospital.
Children's Hospital, yeah, Children's Hospital, yeah.
That's a different environment.
Yeah, and what happened, let me tell you the story, how that came about. A Goodyear vice president was on the board of Children's Hospital. And he then retired from Goodyear, but stayed on the board there. And he had heard about lean. We were at the very beginning of here when this happened. And he told the chairman at Children's Hospital, he found out that they are doing lean there actually. And he said, oh, that's what the guys at Goodyear are doing. And he picks up the phone and he calls me and he says, you need to go and actually, he thought I could go there and teach, but actually it was the other way around. I went there to learn, and I learned a lot. And I took the Goodyear leadership out there several times to do a camera walk at the Children's Hospital. And believe it or not, one of our chief technical officers at that time, he didn't get out of the kitchen there because he was fascinated with the way they organized the kitchen. Okay, and why not? It was a very lean way of doing that, and to have all these different orders, because they have such a variety of because of dietary requirements and so on. It was fascinating to him how they were managing to do that and get every meal delivered on time to the right patient at the right time. And hey, why not? They figured it out, and we learned a lot there. Great place. And a few years back, this is probably 10 years back, this gentleman who I knew from there calls me and he said, you know, I want to get a degree in hospital innovation. And he said, can you write me a recommendation that I can use to get into college to do that? And a month later, he sent me a nice email and said, hey, thanks again. I made it. I was accepted. And he now works there, lean expert. And now he has a degree in hospital innovation that he got in University of Arizona. It was an internet course. He couldn't have afforded to go get away for that long. But hey, that's how things happen. That's how you help each other.
Mm. Okay, good. So one of the chapters here is called 100 Ideas.
Yes.
But do you really want 100? Why don't you only get the good idea?
Yes. It has been proven that the quality of innovation is proportional to the diversity of input, let me call it like that. The more ideas you bring to the table, the higher chances you find the right solution at the end. Because we all know that there is a morphing effect in innovation, and it is very very important to understand that. You may have an idea, but at the end of the day, that thing will not be launched the way you thought at the beginning. It will change tremendously. And to accommodate that, I mean, you don't get it right the first day. And to accommodate that, you need a variety. You need a diversity of input here. And I'm not saying if you have those 100 ideas, you pursue all 100. No, you work with what we know very well as set-based concurrent engineering, and you just start with a large array of options, and you eliminate the bad ones and you keep the good ones, and you don't know when you have to pick another good one that you haven't discarded yet because you run into a different problem. So yes, that is a fact. The diversity and the variety has to be there. It will really help you. And I make a big point in the book about that, by the way. If you all the ideas had been discarded, all the possibilities had been discarded. They found one that they hadn't even thought about anymore. And the leader says, aren't you glad that you had such a large variety to start with? And that actually saved the hero of the book there. Yes, and you only throw them away, Peter, when you eliminate. You only throw them away when you've proven that they don't work. Everything else, keep it alive. Make the big decisions at the end, not at the beginning.
Now, I note in the chapter 4, writing an idea, you say that Mo had been frequently stopping by the lab to see what Vinny was up to. Yeah. That kind of curiosity should be good for innovation, I think.
Yeah, it is. But in this case, Peter, they let the lab technician build this bicycle. Nobody told him what to do. He was one of their best technicians, and they left him. They were absolutely sure, confident that this guy would be able to do it. And I think that's an important point. He didn't make a drawing here and dump the drawing on the guy. He let him do it. And he went out there just curious because he didn't know exactly what this guy was doing. And he ended up with a much, much better prototype than he would have ended up if he had drawn it himself. He was able to get this input from this guy. Who was an expert. I mean, this guy knew how to weld pieces together. No need to make him a drawing for that. And I think it's this idea of engagement. Let him do it. Let's see what he comes up with. And if it's not good enough, then we improve it. He probably comes up with something better than I could have come up, because he's the expert in building bikes, not the engineer. He built many of them. He knows how to do that. And the engineer just went there by curiosity, just to learn how this guy is doing.
Great. Just skipping a bit from the book, because next week you will talk about building a culture for innovation and excellence, and I think we've spoken a bit about that already, but you will also run a workshop on lean creativity.
Correct.
And this will be the first time.
That's right. And I do have the right partner for that. And his name is Anu Heremans, and he's a psychologist. And he knows how the brain works. I only know what works and what doesn't work, okay, but I don't know why it doesn't work or why it works. And I think the way we put things together, practical experience, I did innovation for almost 40 years in the industry, and Anu did psychology for, 30 years, and putting the two together is really has worked quite well. And by the way, right after we're done here, I need to send him my slides and for example, I talk more about what is industrial innovation, what drives industrial innovation based on my experience, and then Arnaud will go in there and explain it from the psychological piece and from the physiological piece, how things work. And by the way, we will talk a lot about fear, Peter. We'll talk a lot about fear, how we can eliminate fear, why fear is there in the first place, and how we can eliminate it, and how we can make people comfortable at really being uncomfortable, and things like that. So we're just, and by the way, the reason we call it lean, we use the lean framework. We use a lean framework of respect, humility, engagement, collaboration, and so on, to build a better creative process, or to show companies how they can build a better creative process, or a better innovative culture.
Mm-hmm. It's quite an interesting topic.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do it because it's really new, totally new. I don't think anybody ever published anything on that. So.
Good. I was thinking about another basic question is how do you challenge the current way of thinking with people? Because if you have always done something in a certain way, then it's why should you change?
Yeah, that's a good point. And here again comes the culture. You need to enable it. It comes with education. You need to enable it. You need to give people the possibility to experiment. And by the way, you need to let people experiment outside the standard. It's very important. And you give them the means. You don't give them a 50 million budget. You give them a credit card, okay, and a token that they can go to your lab and get testing done without the approval of your leader. And you give them the possibility to work, the possibility to experiment. And but it may be a little challenge to get the leaders support that. But if the leaders know they only spend a small amount of money and they're not turning the company upside down, it's much easier to get that agreement and to get that support. And then you have to engage the leaders in what's happening. If there are minimum viable products, the leaders must see them. The leaders must play with them. In my case, the leader rides the bike, okay, because he's curious, and he rides the new bike that they invented, and is quite surprised. He threw the idea away a few before, and now since he wrote it, he changed his mind completely. So that's how that's that culture that I'm talking about, and that culture you have to build. You have to learn how to build it and build it.
I was thinking about Charles Darwin, who said it's not the strongest that survives; it's the one with most winning innovations.
There we go. He didn't quite say it that way, but thanks for quoting him like that, Peter.
I think that is a key for success, to be able to innovate in any company.
And I'm when I talk at the conference, I talk about a bunch of companies, and we know them well. One of them is Kodak, who had a digital camera 20 years before the first one came on the market, and you wonder why they totally missed the boat. And there are many cases like that, and you can analyze them to death, and they all have one common denominator. But you have to come to the conference for that now. So.
And before that, read the book.
There we go. You have to hold it in front of your face, Peter, that we can see it. Now you're blending it. Now we don't see it.
So quite interesting talk. I don't know if we have any questions, a last-minute question.
Well, there was some in the chat.
In the chat, we have no one right now.
But Kimberly asked the question, are you referring to Peter Fritz? Kimberly, no. Somebody else. I will talk to you about it.
Yeah, take that offline.
Yeah.
Kimberly is also asking about if it's similar to Ellie Goldratt's book, if it's a business novel.
Well, I think Goldratt broke ground there with his first business novel. I have a lot of respect for him, and it was very well written. And he had also a great writer who wrote it. I don't think you can compare it. The subject is totally different. But I learned a lot from Cox, who was Goldratt's writer, and Cox wrote several other books, and I read them, and some of them I read them several times, and learned a lot from Michael Ballet, and so on. But for the rest, I just sat down and wrote it and see what happens. It is difficult. It is difficult to match all these different stories. I mean, there are about 7 or 8 stories that are woven together through the whole book. And one of the most important questions, the love story ends in the last sentence of the book. I had to drag that to the last sentence so to have people read it to the last sentence.
Have you thought about any other format, like a Netflix series or so?
Yeah, but I hope somebody will buy the movie rights for this book, Peter. Spread the word. It would make a great movie.
Yeah, maybe at least for us. Well, thank you a lot, Norbert.
Well, thank you for inviting me here, Peter. I like to share my thoughts, and I hope people learn something new today. I hope it is a new subject, the culture, and it is a new subject, the creativity. To combine the creativity with lean, it's a new subject, I think. So. And there's a lot to come on that, beyond what I wrote about it. So a lot more to come, has to come.
Oh, thank you.
Very welcome.